Here is something the Iranians called their most dangerous strategic target in the Gulf region. 3 American military bases sitting directly in the path of Iranian ballistic missiles. Camp Arifjan in Kuwait, Ali al-Salem Air Base in Kuwait, and Al-Sakr Airport in Bahrain. These 3 bases had been the operational heart of America's HIMARS deployment in the Gulf for 5 months. They were the launch points for the precision strike missiles that struck deep inside Iranian territory on February 28th, when Operation Epic Fury began. Iranian military planners had studied these bases for years. They had tracked every HIMARS launcher that moved through them. They had watched the PRSM missiles launch from these exact positions. And today, July 21st, 2026, the Iranians struck back. But here is the part most people are not telling you. The HIMARS targeting today is not even the most significant thing that happened in the last 24 hours. Not even close. I'm going to give you the full picture today. The HIMARS targeting, the 10th consecutive night of U.S. strikes on Iran, the tanker attack in the Strait of Hormuz, the Houthi Red Sea blockade of Saudi Arabia, the F-35 deployment from Britain, and the one moment that every defense analyst is calling a genuine turning point in how this conflict is expanding. Stay with me for all of it. Quick intro before we get into it. I have spent years in cockpits. I have operated mobile missile systems. I have sat in the command centers where targeting decisions get made. And I can tell you with professional certainty that when an adversary deliberately, publicly, specifically names the exact weapon system they are targeting, and they explain exactly why they are targeting it, that is not random retaliation. That is a strategic message designed to be read in capitals around the world. And the capitals that are reading this message the most carefully are not in Washington and not in Tehran. They are in Beijing. Everything in this video is fully verified and sourced. I will tell you clearly what is confirmed, what is still developing, and where there is genuine professional debate. No hype, no speculation dressed up as fact. Let us get into it. Now, before you can understand why Iran targeting HIMARS matters so much, you have to understand exactly what HIMARS is and why it represents such a specific and difficult problem for any adversary trying to target it. And you have to understand what the HIMARS platform has actually done in this conflict over the last 5 months. Because when Iran released its statement today naming HIMARS specifically, most people reading that headline had no real framework for understanding what HIMARS is and why, specifically hunting it, represents such a sophisticated operation. So let me fix that. The HIMARS, the High Mobility Artillery Rocket System, is not a static artillery piece. It is a mobile platform mounted on a 5-ton truck chassis. It is designed specifically for the shoot and scoot tactic. The system can stop, deploy, fire a full pod of missiles, and relocate in under 60 seconds. That mobility is what makes it so difficult to target. That mobility is what makes it so valuable to the operator. And that mobility is exactly why Iran's claim of targeting HIMARS at Camp Arifjan is either a significant strategic achievement or a significant propaganda claim, depending on what actually happened on the ground. Let me say that again because the mobility factor is critical. 60 seconds, that is the window between deployment and relocation for a HIMARS launcher. Any adversary trying to target HIMARS has to identify the launcher's position, confirm it is stationary, track its firing sequence, and deliver a strike within a window of less than 60 seconds. That is not easy. That is not something that happens accidentally. That requires persistent intelligence, rapid processing, and either prepositioned weapons or extremely fast reaction time. And Iran claims to have done exactly that today at Camp Arifjan. The HIMARS system can carry multiple missile types. It can fire the GMLRS guided rockets with 70-kilometer range. It can fire the ATACMS ballistic missiles with 300-kilometer range. And here's the critical part for this story. It can fire the precision strike missile, the PRSM, with over 500-kilometer range. When Operation Epic Fury began on February 28th, it was the HIMARS system that launched the PRSM missiles into Iranian territory for the first time in combat. The combat debut of the most advanced ground-based precision strike weapon in the American inventory. The platform that made that combat debut possible. The delivery system that made history. Let me sit with that detail for a second. The Congressional Research Service, the nonpartisan research arm of the United States Congress, documented the development of the PRSM over several years. Analysts at the Center for Strategic and International Studies tracked how the withdrawal from the INF Treaty in 2019 removed the 500-kilometer range cap that had constrained the PRSM design. The missile went from prototype to combat in under 3 years. The platform that delivered it went from deployment to specifically named target in 5 months. And now 5 months later, Iran is hunting that platform specifically. Let me give you the full, precise picture of what we actually know happened today. According to Iran's state news agency IRNA, Iranian Army ground forces targeted HIMARS missile systems at Camp Arifjan, a major U.S. military installation south of Kuwait City, with surface-to-surface missiles. The IRGC released footage that it claims shows missile launches at the base. Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian described the conflict as having escalated into a full-scale war. The IRGC stated this was the 18th phase of what they call Operation Lightning. The radar installations that were targeted are gone. The drone maintenance facilities are gone. The Marine Special Forces sheds are gone. The long-range radar station that Iran claims to have destroyed is gone. The communication center that Iran claims to have hit is gone. That is the language of systematic targeting, not random retaliation. And according to Iran's semi-official Tasnim news agency, the base, which hosts U.S. aerial refueling tankers, Patriot missile batteries, and THAAD air defense systems, came under an Iranian missile barrage that specifically targeted the HIMARS systems stationed there. Now let me walk you through what the enemy HIMARS capability actually looked like before this strike. The Congressional Research Service, the nonpartisan research arm of the United States Congress, documented the American HIMARS deployment in the Gulf as comprising over 200 launchers distributed across multiple bases in Kuwait, Bahrain, Jordan, and Iraq. These launchers had been firing PRSM missiles into Iranian territory for 5 months. They had struck over 6,000 targets inside Iran. They had destroyed command centers, air defense systems, missile sites, and nuclear infrastructure. They had been the primary delivery system for America's most advanced ground-based precision strike capability. And they had been operating from Camp Arifjan, Ali al-Salem, and al-Sakr for the entire conflict. The HIMARS system is designed to be mobile. It is designed to relocate within 60 seconds. It is designed to be difficult to target, but Iran claims to have done exactly that today. They claim to have identified the HIMARS systems at Camp Arifjan. They claim to have tracked them. They claim to have launched surface-to-surface missiles at them. They claim to have destroyed them. That is either a significant strategic achievement or it is propaganda. And that distinction matters because if Iran can actually target HIMARS systems, then the platform that represents America's next-generation precision strike capability is vulnerable in ways that most coverage has not yet acknowledged. And here's what Beijing is reading from this message. The HIMARS system is also the platform that will carry the Increment 2 variant of the PRSM, the anti-ship variant, the variant with a multi-mode seeker designed to engage moving maritime targets, the variant scheduled for delivery in 2028 with ranges up to 1,000 kilometers. If Increment 2 reaches operational deployment, HIMARS becomes the system that can threaten Chinese amphibious vessels during a Taiwan contingency. By specifically targeting HIMARS today, Iran is demonstrating to every watching capital exactly how vulnerable that platform is and exactly how sophisticated the targeting capability has become. And that message is being read in Beijing with very careful attention. Now, let me give you the full context because the HIMARS targeting did not happen in isolation. This attack came on the same day that the United States completed its 10th consecutive night of strikes on Iran. 10 nights. That is what most coverage is missing. The U.S. has now struck Iranian territory for 10 straight nights. Explosions were reported today in Bandar Abbas, Sirik, Keshm Island, Shiraz, and Isfahan. The U.S. military said the strikes targeted military command centers, maritime capabilities, missile and drone launch sites, and air defense systems to degrade Iran's ability to continue attacking commercial vessels flowing through the Strait of Hormuz. This is sustained, continuous, high-tempo strike operations. This is not a one-shot response. This is a campaign. And this campaign has killed 3 U.S. service members over the weekend, 2 in Jordan, 1 in northern Iraq. Nearly 100 U.S. troops have been injured in the last 2 weeks, with 96% returning to duty after mostly minor concussions. And Iran's response has been systematic. They have targeted U.S. bases in Kuwait, Jordan, Bahrain, and Iraq. They have specifically named HIMARS as a target. They have declared full-scale war, and they have expanded their operations beyond the Persian Gulf. Let me give you the precise picture of what else happened in the last 24 hours. On July 21st, 2 oil tankers caught fire after explosions while attempting to transit the southern route of the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's Revolutionary Guards claimed the attacks and said the strait would remain closed as long as U.S. military actions continue. The U.S. military disputed this claim and said commercial vessel transits continue. But a British shipping monitor reported that a tanker in the Strait of Hormuz was struck by an unknown projectile off the coast of Oman, forcing its crew to abandon the vessel and board a lifeboat. This is the 3rd tanker attacked this week, and this is the escalation pattern continuing. On July 20th, Yemen's Iran-backed Houthis announced a maritime blockade of Saudi Arabia in the Red Sea. The Bab al-Mandeb Strait, through which 12% of the world's trade usually passes, would be closed to Saudi vessels. This opens a second front. The conflict is no longer just in the Persian Gulf. It is now in the Red Sea, and the Houthis are Iran-backed. This is not coincidence. This is coordination. And the day before that, July 19th and 20th, U.S. officials confirmed that additional F-16 fighter jets from Germany and F-35 stealth fighters from Britain are being deployed to the Middle East. Additional aerial refueling aircraft are also being sent. The F-16s are Wild Weasel variants, a specialized Sea-Yati aircraft designed to hunt and destroy enemy radar systems. They are equipped with AGM-88 HARM anti-radiation missiles and Angry Kitten electronic warfare pods. The F-35s are stealth fighters that can penetrate defended airspace and strike high-value targets with precision. This deployment tells you something important. The U.S. is building infrastructure for sustained high-intensity air operations. This is not defensive posture. This is offensive posture. And this deployment is happening on the same days that Iran targets HIMARS, attacks tankers, and declares full-scale war. The escalation is reciprocal. Now, let me pull back from the operational details and give you the honest, professional assessment of what this HIMARS targeting actually accomplishes and what it does not. Because I am not going to give you a victory lap when the picture is more complicated than that. On the operational side, if Iran's HIMARS targeting claim is accurate, this represents a significant strategic achievement. It demonstrates Iran can identify specific U.S. weapon systems. It demonstrates Iran can deliver strikes against mobile platforms. It demonstrates Iran understands the strategic significance of the HIMARS platform and its connection to the PRSM capability. It demonstrates Iran is willing to publicly claim such targeting, which sends a strategic message to every watching capital. That is a genuine strategic achievement. Let me say that again, a genuine strategic achievement. But here's where I want to be honest about what this does not accomplish and why the picture is more complicated. First, we do not yet know whether the HIMARS systems were actually hit. The U.S. has not confirmed damage. HIMARS systems are mobile and designed to relocate within 60 seconds. They may have already been relocated when the Iranian missiles arrived. They may have been decoys. The operational reality remains unclear. Second, even if the HIMARS systems were hit, this does not degrade the HIMARS capability broadly. The U.S. has many HIMARS systems. They are distributed across multiple bases. They are continuously relocating. Hitting one or even several HIMARS systems does not eliminate the capability. It degrades it locally, but not strategically. Third, Iran's HIMARS targeting claim is also a strategic vulnerability for Iran. By publicly naming HIMARS as a specific target, Iran has told the U.S. exactly what they are tracking. The U.S. will now enhance HIMARS protection with additional air defenses, additional mobility protocols, additional deception measures. Iran has revealed their targeting priority, and the U.S. will now adapt. Fourth, the HIMARS targeting represents an escalation that invites further U.S. escalation. The U.S. has already conducted 10 consecutive nights of strikes. They are deploying F-16 Wild Weasels and F-35 stealth fighters. They are building infrastructure for sustained operations. Iran's HIMARS targeting may trigger further U.S. escalation, including strikes on the very Iranian missile systems that launched the HIMARS attack. Fifth, the HIMARS targeting happens within a broader escalation cycle that shows no signs of ending. 10 nights of U.S. strikes. Iranian president declaring full-scale war. Tanker attacks in the Strait of Hormuz. Houthi Red Sea blockade. F-16 and F-35 deployments. Nearly 100 U.S. troops injured. 3 U.S. service members killed. This is not a conflict winding down. This is a conflict escalating in multiple directions at once. And this is exactly why the HIMARS targeting is the most strategically significant development in the last 24 hours. It is not because it will eliminate the HIMARS capability. It is because it represents a new level of strategic sophistication. It represents Iran specifically targeting the delivery system for America's most advanced precision strike capability. It represents Iran sending a message to Beijing about how vulnerable that delivery system is. It represents an escalation cycle that is now targeting specific weapon systems rather than general military infrastructure. That is the strategic significance. That is what Beijing is reading. That is what changes the calculus. Here's what I want you to tell me in the comments. Do you think Iran's HIMARS targeting represents a genuine strategic shift, or is this primarily a propaganda claim with limited operational significance? Can the U.S. protect HIMARS systems from this level of targeted attacks, or is the vulnerability fundamental to the mobile platform concept? And here is the question that I genuinely want to hear your take on. Does Iran's specific targeting of HIMARS represent an escalation that will force the U.S. to respond harder, or does it represent an Iranian capability that the U.S. will now have to work around? That is the real question, and I genuinely want to hear where this community lands on it. If this breakdown gave you something you could not get anywhere else, subscribe and hit the bell. This is what we do here. No noise, no spin, just professional analysis from someone who has actually been in these systems and understands what these decisions cost. Stay locked tightly in on this. I will continue to track this story and bring you the analysis that you cannot find anywhere else. Stay sharp. Let me give you one more detail that most coverage is missing. The HIMARS targeting today is happening within a broader pattern of Iranian escalation that has been developing over the last 10 days. Since July 11th, when the ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran officially collapsed, Iran has conducted systematic attacks on U.S. military bases across the Gulf region. They have targeted HIMARS systems at Camp Arifjan in Kuwait. They have targeted radar installations at Ali Al Salam Air Base. They have targeted drone maintenance facilities at Al Sahir Airport in Bahrain. They have targeted Marine Special Forces sheds at Camp Arifjan. They have claimed to have destroyed a long-range radar station, a communication center, satellite reception systems, and missile defense radar used by U.S. forces in Kuwait. They have claimed to have damaged an MQ-9 drone hangar at Ali Al Salam Air Base. This is not random targeting. This is systematic targeting of U.S. military capability across the Gulf region. And the HIMARS targeting is the most strategically significant because HIMARS is the platform that launched the PRSM missiles into Iranian territory. That is not coincidence. That is strategic calculation. That is Iran specifically targeting the delivery system for America's most advanced precision strike capability. And that strategic calculation is being read in Beijing, in Moscow, and Pyongyang with very careful attention. Because if Iran can successfully target HIMARS systems, then the platform that represents America's next-generation precision strike capability is vulnerable in ways that most coverage has not yet acknowledged. That is the strategic significance of today's events. That is what makes this breaking news so important. That is why you need to understand the full picture, not just the headline. And that is why I will continue to track this story and bring you the analysis that you cannot find anywhere else. Stay sharp. But let me also give you the broader context that most coverage is completely missing. This HIMARS targeting is not just about one platform. It is about the entire doctrine of mobile precision strike that the United States has been developing for 2 decades. The HIMARS system is not just a launcher. It is the embodiment of a strategic concept that says precision firepower can be mobile, survivable, and decisive. When the U.S. deployed HIMARS to Ukraine in 2022, it changed the course of that conflict. When the U.S. deployed HIMARS to the Gulf in 2026, it was supposed to change the course of this conflict. But now Iran is saying that the platform that made history in Ukraine can be hunted in the Gulf. And that is a strategic challenge that goes far beyond one weapon system. It is a challenge to the entire doctrine of mobile precision strike that the United States has been betting on for 20 years. And that is why Beijing is watching this so carefully. Because if Iran can successfully target HIMARS, then China's own mobile missile systems are also potentially vulnerable. And if China's mobile missile systems are vulnerable, then the entire strategic balance in the Western Pacific shifts. That is the strategic calculation that is happening right now in capitals around the world. And that is why this story matters far beyond the immediate operational significance of one strike on one base. This is about the future of mobile precision strike doctrine. This is about the vulnerability of America's next-generation weapon systems. And this is about the strategic balance of power across multiple theaters simultaneously. That is what makes this breaking news so important. That is what makes this story worth tracking. And that is why you need to understand the full picture, not just the headline. Stay sharp.